Welcome to the Plant-Free MD podcast with Dr. Anthony Seyfried, where we discuss diet and nutrition and how this affects health and chronic disease, and show you how you can use this to optimize your health and happiness, both mentally and physically. All right. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Anthony Seyfried here again with another episode of the Plant-Free MD podcast. And today I have a very special guest, Mr. Pablo Kelly, who's joining us from the UK. Pablo, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Yeah.
Great. So for those who don't know, Pablo has a very unique story that I think is going to be very interesting and very helpful to a lot of people to hear. And so, if you wouldn't mind telling us a bit about yourself and what you've been going through, that would be great.
Yeah. Sorry, my dog's making a lot of noise.
Oh, that's all right.
Yes. Well, I'll start at the beginning, I guess. 2014, I was diagnosed with a terminal inoperable brain tumor, glioblastoma multiforme. I, after a bit of deliberation and research, decided to opt out of standard of care because what they were offering me was a really poor quality of life. And the quantity of life as well was very, very short. They said 6 to 9 months without treatment. Was then like 12 months, 12 to 15 with chemo and radiotherapy. And then all these side effects and the fact that I may become impotent kind of put me off as well.
Yeah.
So my idea was that if I'm going to die, I'll die well.
Yeah.
Feeling... generally quite well in my health rather than being suffering and going through a lot of trauma just from the treatment course.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it took me, they said it would take a lot of time out of my life. So it'd be like 6 weeks, I think, of treatment on and off. And if my blood cells, they decrease, my white blood cell count goes down, then I wouldn't be able to have the treatment and all this stuff. And I was just like, why would I put myself through this? So after doing some research prior to that meeting, in fact, like the issue was like, I didn't agree to do chemo or radiotherapy. They decided to send me for an appointment. So I thought I was going to see my oncologist to discuss my treatment options. What they'd done is they'd fast-tracked me into the system saying, oh, he's going to accept it, like a standard patient. I had a beard like this, and it was a radiotherapy mask fitting. And so I got in there and they said, you're supposed to be clean shaven. I said, no one notified me that this was a radiotherapy mask fitting. So they got some office scissors because they couldn't find a shaver. And they spent about 45 minutes cutting my beard off. And then when I got in the room, they molded the mask to my face. And I kind of went along with it because, they're professionals. I was like, I can't really say no. But when I was on the table underneath the machine, getting measured up, so I was all lined up and correct, so they got all the settings. I felt a pit of fear in my stomach, like pure fear and dread, and I just said, I can't do this. Thankfully, my instinct kicked in. So I said, I want to talk to my oncologist, and they said, we'll give her a call. And then I got all my answers, you may become impotent, you'll lose your hair. And I was like, I don't want any of this. And another image popped into my head of my grandfather, kind of estranged grandfather. He died of liver cancer. On his deathbed, I went to see him with my mum, and he was completely vacant. He did not recognize her. He was skin and bones. There was no muscle. He just wasted away due to chemotherapy and radiotherapy. And that image it's part of the dread that I felt. So I just said outright, have you had the ketogenic diets? Mm-hmm. And she said, yeah, I've heard of it, but I don't think it's going to help you at all. Mind you, this was 2014. And it was unheard of being used for cancer patients at all. It's more used for children with epilepsy. Mm-hmm. But I put 2 and 2 together, and I was like, if it's anti-inflammatory, why wouldn't it work? And it's a healthy brain needs fat.
Yeah.
So she said, yeah, it's not gonna help you, and I said, well, I'm gonna take my chances. I'd rather do what I feel is best for me than be told what I should do, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I started ketogenic diet. I used there's a charity called Matthew's Friends in Charing Cross, London, the hospital there, and they help children with epilepsy. It's a children with epilepsy foundation, and Sue Wood, she sent me a load of information about ketogenic diet. You know, meal plans, reducing. It was a restricted calorie ketogenic diet.
Mm-hmm.
So I pretty much started that. I went cold turkey on all sugars, really. First day, all I had was a stick of celery and some almond butter. But I kind of just went from there. And within the first week, I was hitting the 1-to-1 ratio of fat and glucose to ketones.
Great.
Bearing in mind, I was quite young, turning 25 that year. So my metabolism was still pretty fast. So I metabolized it quite well. So I just started straight away, and now I'm kind of ketovore because after my second operation, a weight craniotomy, I went ketovore. So mostly meat, with a bit of veg in between when I feel like it.
Yeah. So you had so at first you didn't have surgery or other treatments. You just
inoperable. No.
Yeah. Okay. And then
2017, after a scan, they said we believe that it's operable now.
Okay.
It's changed shape or form somehow.
Right. Okay.
It's in the motor. It's kind of delving into my motor cortex, which they said if we go there, it's going to disable you. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Not a good option.
So, yeah. That was 2017. 2018, I had the operation, I think.
Okay. So it shrunk it down a bit and then was able to...
I don't know if it shrunk. They said it changed shape. That's all I remember.
Strange. Yeah. Okay. But either way, it was, where it was outside of... That was eloquent.
Yeah. And also the surgeon, he said, I've done over 100 brain tumor operations. So he's well experienced. And he said, I feel confident that I can remove some of this.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
And it wasn't a full resection. It was about 83%.
So did they initially do a biopsy to get the diagnosis, or just on?
In 2014, September 2014.
Yeah, so they did a biopsy then. Okay. And then so how did you hear about the ketogenic diet helping with cancer in the first place?
I didn't hear about it helping. I met one person. There was a random person in Totnes. She had a low-grade brain tumor. And through word of mouth, through my mother and my grandmother, they knew some people who worked in a shop in Totnes called Green Life. Mm-hmm. And they kind of like advise people with supplementation and stuff. And there's one woman called Zoe. I've forgotten her second name, but I believe she's still alive, doing well. But she did the ketogenic diet through she got the information from Matthew's Friends as well.
Oh, right.
So he put me onto them, and I was like, okay, cool. And then that's how I got started.
And so that Matthew...
That was the only person I'd heard of, really. That was the only...
Yeah. So that Matthew's Friend Foundation, you said that was mostly with epilepsy, but did they...
Yeah, it's...
people with cancer?
They don't treat... No, Charing Cross is a hospital. They actually use ketogenic diet. One of the oncologists is for ketogenic diets, but I've not met one in Devon. Where I live in Devon, no, they all say, chemotherapy, radiotherapy is the best option. Yeah,
of course. Yeah. Well, it's what has the most data and studies on.
Yeah.
That's fair. And if you want to just go by that, you want to take the safe, course, and what you can reliably say, well, we know that this will give you this outcome, or on average give that outcome. Whereas with the ketogenic diet, I guess it's more of a long shot maybe in their eyes, but there's certainly more and more evidence coming out. And I think just knowing the cancer biology makes sense. And even if you were to continue a standard of care as well, you could at least incorporate this. And as an oncologist, it's not going to hurt someone. In fact, there was two studies. One was in 2019, one was in 2020. And they found that a ketogenic diet helped sensitize the cancer cells to chemo and radiation. One was for chemo, one was for radiation. They both found the same results, that being on a ketogenic diet helped sensitize the cancer cells to chemo and radiation and help protect the normal cells, the healthy cells, from the chemo radiation. So it actually, was quite beneficial, regardless of its effect on treating the cancer itself. It's going to help chemo and radiation for these cancers too. So hopefully more and more oncologists are picking this up. At my department, my neurosurgical department here in Perth, I presented a lot of this stuff to them in our grand rounds. And I was talking to some of the oncologists there, because I invited the oncology team department to come, and most of them didn't respond, but one of them did. And absolutely, really interested in it. Yeah, of course, a ketogenic diet is going to help. It's going to just starve out the cell. Obviously, we should definitely get a study going on that. So, it is making its way around, but yeah, it's slow moving, I think. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm having a few issues. I've got some an aura.
Sorry, what was that? I didn't hear that.
I got an epileptic aura coming on, so I'm just gonna step outside and get some fresh air.
Yeah, why don't we just pause and you take your time.
Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor at Carnivore Bar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is to just eat meat. But for those times that you're out hiking, road tripping, or stuck at work and you want a nutritious snack that is just meat, fat, and salt if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. So I like this product not because it's just pure meat, but also because I want the carnivore market to thrive as well. And the more we support meat-only products, the more meat-only products there will be available in the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to get behind, check it out using my discount code Anthony to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right. Thanks, guys.
Okay. So I was going to ask as well, you mentioned that you had 2 surgeries. When was your more recent one, your second one?
My most recent one was December before last.
Okay.
So 2021.
Was that just a debulking? Had it just sort of grown back?
It's another awake craniotomy.
Okay.
They didn't remove all of it because got to a point where I was doing my hand exercises and I could not move my hand. My whole arm became disabled, left arm. And he said, right, I'm going to stop there.
Yeah, right. Not a good place to stop.
Yeah, that was a bit of a traumatic. The second operation was more traumatic than the first. The first operation debulked about 80-something percent, 85%, something like that. And I was pretty much carnivore then. And within a month, it disappeared. It's just reduced down to nothing.
Wow. Yeah.
But I relaxed the ketogenic diet, and within a year, I'd put on 2 stone weights, and I'd also, on a ketogenic diet, put on weight. I was eating too much fat and too much food. I was having way too much calories.
Okay.
And it came back. Yeah.
So that was a ketogenic diet and just not a carnivore.
I didn't go carnivore until I had the reoccurrence.
Okay. All right.
So in hindsight, if I had been strict and stayed strict, which is why I tell people now, is from my experience, that if I had maintained the strictness, being not caving into my addictions, then I would have probably had no visible sign of the tumor for a lot longer.
Yeah. And then did you have artificial sweeteners, like those keto snack sort of thing?
No. I stayed away from. I went pretty hardcore keto, so I removed tomatoes, onions. I went anything that came from below ground. I just declined.
Yeah, right. Okay, and then so now you're very close to carnivore, but still have some.
I was carnivore before my operation, and when I came out, I was eating pretty much ketogenic because I just needed to keep my energy up and try to recover as fast as possible.
Yeah. And are you still tracking your GKI?
I am not currently, because I've lost my daughter played with my meter, so I've lost my meter. So before I should really get back on it because tracking the data is going to be helpful for everybody, really.
Yeah. And then, yeah, have you been in contact with Dr. Seyfried? I think he's mentioned your name.
Yeah, he's like a point of contact. So if I do send him, if I got anything I need to ask him, he'll send me some information, have a conversation. Or there's the team who wrote the case study about me. That if I send them the scans, they'll diagnose them properly, because the radiographers there don't do a good job.
That's not great.
No. I mean, one of them apparently he's one of the he teaches radiographer students, so he's like one of the top radiographers in the world.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, well, it's great to have access to those guys as well.
Yeah,
and Seyfried's great. Like I had him on the podcast, and I've seen a lot of his talks and read his studies, and I just he's just first of all, very knowledgeable and interesting guy, but like you can tell, like he genuinely cares about solving this problem.
Yeah. I met him in London in 2018 when I did a speech.
Oh yeah,
and he was saying, "Oh, do you gonna have a glass of wine?" And I was like, "No, I don't drink. I don't do anything like that." He's like, "Well, you actually what's the word? It's not strict, but he said you're adhering."
You're right,
fully to the protocol. And I'm like, yeah. I mean, it makes sense. And he said, "Oh yeah, I should," but he was drinking Guinness.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I guess it gets a bit more real, when you have a real diagnosis to contend with, and so then you just sort of make excuses for different things. But I'm of the same opinion that, like, why would I put something in my body that's not good for my body or could potentially be harmful to my body?
So, I mean, addictions overall conscious thought, don't they? So it's like, I need this, otherwise I'm not going to be happy. It's essentially, that's what we tell ourselves. And at the minute, my struggle is with coffee.
Yeah.
I know it's not doing me any good, so I'm going to stop having it. Because my wife has it. I'm like, oh, I can partake in that. I just keep telling myself it's fine. And then I have issues with like auras. And
yeah, that was an interesting thing. I heard from a few different people that they had lifelong epilepsy, mitigated significantly, got well controlled with a keto diet, and then found carnivore and fully got rid of their seizures and were able to come off their medications. But then had a cup of coffee and said, "Oh, coffee's probably not that big a deal," and then bam, had a seizure.
Yeah,
at least for them, it was like two separate people that maybe two had seizures after that at that point, and so they said, "All right, there's no coffee," and you don't know what it was in the coffee, but caffeine was originally designed as a neurotoxin for insecticide, so it's going to do something. It's something you don't want.
Yeah, we're not putting that stuff in our bodies.
Yeah, exactly. So when you were tracking your GKI, were you able to keep it down around 1 below 2 with just diet? Or
when I was ketogenic and I was having a lot more, adding a lot more olive oil and stuff to my meals, so I was getting my fats right up. So I was hitting about 4 to 4.4 mmO minimal for ketones. So I was matching my glucose. My glucose would reduce right down. Sometimes I went as low as 3.2 glucose.
Oh, wow.
Which was pretty insane. I didn't feel good then. Like, it was like I felt kind of like I was rushing. Like if I'd taken some ecstasy or something, I felt like that was happening to me. Like the energy was excessive. Right. I didn't really need it. I wasn't using it.
Yeah. And then was that just with the diet, or did you do periods of fasting as well?
I was. I didn't fast when I started. I was using ketone supplements, so I was using MCT oil and Keto Force. If I was feeling, if my glucose wasn't lowering and my ketones wasn't raising, I would take some supplements to boost my ketones.
Okay, all right. Yeah, because that's when you look at the different case studies and case series and different studies on this, it does seem to be that people are able to keep that GKI, the glucose ketone index, which Seyfried has an equation in some of his papers.
Yeah, it's press pulse strategy.
Yeah, that they work quite well. And I read a case series from was it Cedar Sinai, and it was a number of them. I think it was like 15 or 16 case reports published in a series of mostly high grade gliomas, mostly GBM, and a lot of them had, and this was like sort of second, third line therapy. They'd already failed care, and so this was already a recurrent, multiple recurrent sort of tumor, and then they get on it, and everyone did very well actually, and the only people that didn't do well were the ones that couldn't get their GKI down or couldn't stay on course. Like one guy had been like a vegetarian prior to that, and then had gone keto and was able to maintain it, for a couple of years, and actually shrank his tumor down significantly.
Yeah.
And then he just said, I can't, go on with this lifestyle. I don't really like doing it this way. It's very limiting socially. So he went back to eating the way he did before, and unfortunately he passed away later that year. And so, and your experience with sort of, not being as adherent to it as you had been before, and having, issues there, it just goes to show you that, I mean, obviously that's, it's not, it's a bit sort of saddening to see that happen, but at the same time, it's sort of reassuring that like this is actually doing something, because when you stop it, it does come back, and then that just says, okay, we'll just get back doing it again.
That reminds me of, there's a woman, she had a consultation with me. I know she heard about me through my blog on Facebook. Unfortunately, right now I can't remember her name. It's really frustrating. But she declined all standard of care because she felt that it wasn't right for her, and she got 2 years extra life because she adhered so strictly, and she enjoyed her life way more than she'd done standard of care. But she sadly passed away due to stress. So her husband had a botched hip surgery. And she ended up having to take charge of all the accounts and do all the work. And, the stress of that ended up causing her to decline in health.
Mm-hmm.
The constant stress and having to work too hard. Because I don't do a lot of stuff. My wife takes a lot of the load for me, because she knows that I need to relax, essentially. I need to heal, or try and heal. So when I'm stressed, I find that things, I have grand mal seizures, I have all these things that occur. And I find that the situation I'm in now is more stressful because of the kind of societal, there was COVID. There was also now the energy crisis, which we're being fed lies about. And I've got less benefit money because my partner works. The whole system is flawed, and I may be terminally ill, but that doesn't mean I'm any less an important member of society. But I'm treated as such.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, that's not obviously that should not be the case, obviously, and I'm sorry to hear that. You were saying that she contacted you through your blog.
She joined Misha Sakharov's Beat Brain Tumor group. He runs a program where he gets everyone to go full carnivore, to eat organ meats, to eat lardo and lots of broth, and practice Buteyko breathing.
Okay, I don't think I've come across.
I met him in London when I met Seyfried, and he said, "I'm meeting this guy Pablo Kelly," and I'm really, really, really excited to meet this guy, because he's done it all by himself. He's not had any treatment, and he's survived. Oh, wow. And then when I had the reoccurrence, I gave him a call. I said, you said you could help me, and he said, "Yeah, join my group." Go straight to carnivore, and you'll do all right.
Yeah. And sorry, who's this gentleman? I don't think I've
Misha Sakharov.
Misha Sakharov?
Sakharoff. He's a Russian fellow who lives in Denmark or something right now. But he helps lots of people.
Okay. And so he has a group where he helps people with any kind of cancer, or specifically GBM?
He's helped someone with blood cancer, leukemia.
Mhm.
An old Canadian guy. He's actually had no progression of cancer, so his cells are perfectly fine. And he's just very strict. He goes to his next door neighbor and he buys. He helps cut up the meats, so he gets bones for himself, and he buys the meat off his neighboring farm. And he's just doing really well. His white blood cells are fine, and they're all surprised. They're like surprised that he's not progressed into being worse health, and it's just
Yeah. And then
so he does help different people, but it's mainly focused on brain tumors.
Oh wow! And so he himself had a brain tumor as well.
No, he had sudden athlete death, where he was a tennis coach and a football coach, semi-pro, and he was running like 10 kilometers one day, and his heart slowed down to like really low beats per minute, and luckily he was found in a hedge. I got to the hospital, and he said, "Right, I need to change my whole paradigm, shift my mindset." Because what I'm doing is not right.
Yeah.
So he went carnivore. He did lots of research. He's a very intelligent guy. So he's helping people. He does a metabolic program as well for anyone who wants to join that.
Nice.
But it's very simple, very clean, very effortless stuff. But everyone finds it so difficult because it means cutting out all the addictions.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a website. It's just hisname.com, I think.
Oh, very cool. And so are you active on that? And you talk to people?
No, I can't afford to pay for anything at the minute, so I don't. Yeah, I left his group, but I'm in contact with him. He's a good friend. I started on his program. I was doing a Friday meeting where I would all the brain tumor buddies would turn up, and I would host, and we'd talk about anything that was stressing us out, or our successes, or how we can better our mindset involving ketogenic or carnivore diets and breathing techniques. And so I did that for a while. I helped him out a lot.
Yeah. And then
obviously just meeting someone like me who's survived way beyond the odds. 6 to 9 months was what I was told I would have without chemotherapy and radiotherapy. And I'm in my 9th year.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. That's fantastic. And how are you doing now? You said that you're up and around and enjoying time with your family.
I'm fully sorry. I've frozen.
Yeah, I can still hear you. It just for some reason
okay, weird.
It's frozen.
Zoom's trying to crash. So I'm fully functional. My left arm, my left hand, specifically my thumb and my middle finger, have a few strength problems still. So when I pinch them together, they don't really. I can't feel any power from the operation. And I've had one grand mal seizure in nearly 2 years.
Nice. Yeah. And you were having them regularly before that?
I was pre-operation. I was having them quite frequently.
Yeah. Okay.
So not having them for ages is quite handy.
Yeah, definitely. And are you on medications for that?
I'm taking something called Zebanex for that.
Okay. All right. Well, that's great. It's it's one of those things when you have an actual lesion there, sometimes it's very difficult to control those seizures. So it's very beneficial. I mean, you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. We have a good 100 years of very good data on the ketogenic diet helping seizures. So thankfully those are sort of don't have to do 2 things. It's just the same thing. It helps both.
Yeah.
And then do you still speak in those groups? Do you have a
No, I do kind of Zoom consultations for 40 minutes on my website. So anyone who's willing to take a chance in their life and do something that actively promotes health in their body and their brain, with brain cancer, I've had lots of people over the last 3 years come and talk to me to ask me why I did. The anecdotal evidence of me being alive is more than enough to inspire them for hope, and hope's hard to come by when you've got GBM.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, it's good that you're putting yourself out there to help people like that. Are you involved? I know that Andrew Scarborough is trying to get some human trials going down at Charing Cross Hospital. Are you involved with that at all, or speaking?
No, I don't know anything about that.
Okay. Yeah, I think he's just trying to get some trials going.
Yeah, I mean, he's in a really good position where he's a medical student and he's got the ability to do stuff like that, which is great because if he can get something going, then all the better for people like me.
Yeah.
Newly diagnosed people,
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it is great because there are more and more trials starting up. I've gotten permission from my hospital department to get one going. So as long as I can get something through the ethics board, I can try and get something going. And then there's another one starting up in New Zealand. A Canadian guy, their neurologist is getting one up, just starting. And then Cedars-Sinai, Dr. Hugh, HU, is just starting a phase 2 trial where they're trying to get like a multi-center, several hundred patients in going on it as well. So I think that's really the next step, is getting that next, get the big number studies where we can really say, hey, this is actually doing something. And as soon as we get that, one big, seminal study, which is just like, we have hundreds of patients, and we'll see. Well, I'm confident that it will show a benefit, but I guess we'll find out. But if it does, and you have it's well powered, well structured, which it will be, then that can be, and I think that will open the floodgates for other departments to say, okay, well let's just incorporate this now, and then see what happens. So hopefully that is in the next couple of years in the pipeline. Did I lose you here? It's maybe frozen even more. Goodness.
Yeah, so I've been waiting since 2014 for something to occur that was more beeline towards kind of healing the metabolic side of brain cancer, because all of the focus is on new drugs, new chemicals to combat cancer, and obviously chemotherapy was derived from mustard gas. So I think so. That's ridiculous that we're putting that in our bodies to try and treat cancer when it's causing more problems.
I actually have a friend of mine. He's a professor, I think, at Rice University in Texas, I believe, and he of maybe biochemistry, something like that. But when he was at the University of Washington doing his research degree, they were doing research specifically on scorpion venom, and they found that it actually had a high affinity for like GBM cells. Yeah. And so they're trying to figure that out. It's like, okay, well, maybe this is something that we can use to target these GBM cells. Yeah. I don't actually know if that ended up working out, but yeah, you're taking some sort of horrible toxin that just happens to be more toxic to the thing that you're trying to attack than the rest of your. Yeah. It's not ideal any way you look at it. All right. Well, that's great, man. Well, do you have any sort of anything else you sort of wanted to say to people that are maybe going through this, or know someone who is going through this, and just some piece of advice or anything like that?
I guess, like in the beginning, first thing you should do is do as much research about brain tumors as possible. Find out exactly what your tumor means, how you can treat it, and focus mainly on your mindset, getting your mindset right, because we get told when we're diagnosed, this is deadly, you're going to die, essentially. There's no two ways about it. They don't give you any hope. They're not allowed to within the kind of laws of medicine, I guess. They can only tell you the facts, and the facts from their understanding. So you got to always ask for a second opinion, because your doctor may not always be right.
Mm.
And
Definitely.
yeah, so like from the offset, my mindset, because I managed to quit smoking, started when I was 12 years old because someone shoved a cigarette in my mouth and made me smoke it when I was young. So I smoked till I was 22 years old, and then I quit. And I found that really hard to do. But when I did it, I found that my whole mindset, and how I approach things, my willpower became infinitely stronger because I was like, I can do this. I can do anything.
Yeah.
Because all of my friends were doing, I had to disassociate myself from any toxic environment, social dynamic that I was in, to quit smoking and quit doing drugs because I was doing cannabis and partying hard for most of my adult life, my teenage life. So yeah, I would say look at meditation, look at inspirational figures. There's like Eckhart Tolle. His message is all about presence, right? Being present in the moment, being present with anything you do. And when you're present with anything you do, there's no fear, there's no hate, there's no love. It's just you're disconnected from all your past and your future.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just here. And I try and tell people that being present is the simplest and easiest part of being alive. It's like instinct. Instinct is being present. I instinctually chose not to do standard of care because it scared the bejesus out of me. My gut instinct was no, this is deadly, this is death, and I said no. And fortunately for me, that was the perfect choice because I'm still here, and that was a lot of hard work to get to this point. But I'm doing the hard work. And the whole time I tried to be as present as possible with my fear of death. So my fear of death, it crops up in the most random of circumstances when I'm like hugging my daughter or my son. Suddenly they go, "Oh, what if I die?" And there'll be sorrow, there'll be pain, there'll be suffering for them. But then I say, this is just a story. I'm telling my ego is trying to tell me something pointless. It doesn't affect me here and now, does it?
Right.
So every time, I've just had a scan last Saturday. I'm gonna ring them up on Friday and demand my results because at the minute, because of all this COVID restrictions and stuff, it's still going on. They're very slow at giving me my results, even though I don't go in. I don't have a base of contact. Mm-hmm. I don't really have I've got my only base of contact is my surgeon. I don't have an oncologist. They took me off the list. Which is good because I didn't want to be on it anyway, but they don't give me the feedback I need. The only thing I need from them is my results for my scans.
Yeah.
And yeah, so hopefully I'll find out what's going on with that. And when that happens, I'll try and be present with the results because, I feel that there's been some changes, probably because I've been a bit lax on my diet. So if there is a change, I'm going to go give myself a kick up the arse and say, that's it. Pure carnivore, eat organ meats. I've been a bit lazy of late, really. But I've been recovering from a big operation where I was almost partially disabled.
Yeah.
So I've been kind of using that as an excuse not to do more.
Yeah.
So live and learn.
Well, that's great advice, and that's definitely something that I think.
Yeah, also if people want to get in contact with me, I've got a website which if you post that on the blog, your podcast.
Yeah, please do. Please. What are the best ways that people get in touch with you? Social media, websites, things like that.
Yeah. Just send me a message or something, and we'll try and arrange a meeting because I believe that meeting someone who's done it all. I've pretty much done it all. I haven't done chemo or radiotherapy, so I don't know what that's like.
Right.
But I do understand what it's like. I've spoken to over 100 people in my time with brain tumors, and they'll find my just my presence putting myself out there. At the beginning, by the way, my blog was just me ranting and raving and removing my stresses onto the world. Yeah. And people started listening and going, wow, this is amazing. What he's doing is amazing. And then it just kept on kind of spiraling. And whenever people Google glioblastoma survivors, I kind of pop up on their feed, which is really good.
Yeah. Yeah, very good.
And the more podcasts I do, I've got 3 podcasts coming up recently. Nice. Yeah. So I'm trying to put myself out there a bit more, just like get the word out, because for some reason it's not being heard all over the world. And I think metabolic approaches to cancer are probably the best way forward.
I think so. And
even alongside standard of care, because, it's going to reduce the effects of the drugs and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's only going to help. Seyfried is actually not a fan of standard of care because he's, surgery debulking. Yeah, but with chemo and radiation, especially the radiation, he's not a fan because he says that it can make the microenvironment around the tumor worse and more agreeable to a recurrence. And so, and it can be very harmful. You can get radiation necrosis, and that can kill you. I've seen a few people die from that. There was one lady, I think, that he wrote up as a case study that she lived quite a long time, quite a number of years past what they were expecting, and then she ended up, having a period of radiation and chemo here and there, but then she ended up actually dying from radiation necrosis, unfortunately. Yeah. So the tumor that got her, it was the
about 2 years ago, I became the longest living known survivor that Seyfried had heard of. There was a guy in Egypt. He told me the story. There's a guy in Egypt. He did keto kind of carnivore for 6 years. He got to the 6-year mark, and because he was doing so well, he decided to go and work his vineyard again.
Mm-hmm.
And because he didn't have enough time to do the diet and stuff, he decided to do radiotherapy. And within 6 months after starting radiotherapy, he passed away.
Jesus.
And Seyfried believes that it's due to the radiation, the poisoning of the body.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if this was from that or something else because I don't have all the details. But I have a good friend of mine that I've known for 20 some years, and she was diagnosed with GBM 6 years ago. And I told her at the time, I was just like, hey, this might help you, and something to think about. And so she was, just off and on with it. Did keto, eat more meat, and cleaned up a lot of what she was eating, but it wasn't really all that. Wasn't strict with it the whole time. Had a couple of debulkings, but then she would have these periods where she was pretty good with it. And at 5 years, she had a repeat scan. It looked like there was, no sign of disease, which is great. She did go through standard of care. She did all the chemo and radiation as well, and as well as diet. And then it's sort of in her 6th year, it did come back, and she'd sort of gone off of it. And she'd been just, she was saying, hey, look, I need to enjoy my life. I do that. And I was like, yeah, of course you need to make that decision for yourself. And then she was just like, I shouldn't have done that. I should have, stayed on this. And so she was back on the diet and doing it very strict and doing very well with it and feeling better with it. But then she went in for radiation, and she responded very poorly to radiation immediately. She was fine going in, and just every session she got weaker and worse, and started getting, the opposite side weakness, and was just getting worse and worse. And unfortunately, she's deteriorated quite significantly. I don't know where she's at now. Last I heard was from her husband, who messaged me and thanked me for all the help over the years, and just let me know that she had sort of been checked into hospice care and wasn't doing well. So so that can be the other side of the coin. It's when people like yourself say, I don't really like the sound of chemo radiation. Like, I can't really blame them, and while I do think that there's absolutely a role for standard of care, it does not come without risk. And unfortunately it can be too much. And for her, it seemed to be too much.
Yeah. I believe that if I was to, because if I got a scare with the tumor was growing rapidly and I decided to do radiotherapy, I believe that because my body has not gone through that before, the shock on the body and the system would be overpower my healing, any healing that would happen. So I'd have a massive inflammatory response. That's my fear. That's why I'm not going anywhere near it. If I'm going to die, I will embrace it. I'll still do everything I can to stay alive because that is my will, my focus.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to embrace death by doing something that I believe will kill me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is that there are a number of doctors who do the same thing where they don't even know about keto. They just say, I'm going through that. I'm not gonna do keto on radiation. I'm just, they just, resign their positions, empty some bank accounts and just go on a, trip with their wife and kids and,
enjoy the love of life. Yeah.
That's it. And so, and yet, that was the thing I've read in Atul Gawande, one of his books, and he's a surgeon over at, and a professor of surgery over at Harvard, and wrote a bunch of books. One was called Complications, and then Better, and things like that. And that was one of the things he said. He said that, if you look at statistically, doctors are much less likely to accept chemo and radiation when they get a cancer diagnosis.
They'll suggest that it's mad. It's a mad one.
That's it, and it's just like, what would you do? And the majority of people, of doctors, what they would do is say, stuff it. I'm doing something. I'm not gonna deal with that. I suppose it depends on what you had, and if you knew the success rates and things like that. And this was like just not really one that like had a very good prognosis, then you just be like, okay, well, like you said, it's like, well, I'm not gonna just waste the last, I'm
not gonna suffer more for a better life.
Yeah, exactly. And so, might as well enjoy the time that I have as opposed to suffering for more time,
I mean, obviously I've had 2 children in my 9 years, and that was unexpected. That was the first, was like an accidental conception, the first, my Luna. And we were scared of our minds when we found out we were pregnant. It was like, what do we do? Because if I die, what's she going to have? And then I said, well, this is a choice. This is a chance for me to embrace life more fully. Why not do it? And we just said, yeah, fuck it, let's do it. Let's embrace life more, because why be scared of life?
Yeah, absolutely. And now, so 2 kids and.
Yeah. Malachi's nearly 2. He'll be 2 in June. Luna's going to be 5 in June.
Yeah, that's great.
So, yeah.
Well, and that's the thing.
They're both kind of keto, kind of semi-keto. They eat potatoes, but that's about it, really.
Okay.
When they were babies, they were pretty much keto. We didn't feed them any complex carbs. Unfortunately, because of going to school, she watches people eat all the rubbish that they eat. She's kind of got to focus on, I want what they're having. So we can't really force her to eat what we're eating. But when she grows up and we give her some more understanding, she's more able to comprehend what we're saying. Mm-hmm. Hopefully she'll follow in our footsteps and be keto or carnivore.
Yeah.
The thing is, like last Christmas, she tore a leg off a turkey. That was a feat.
Yeah. They
love fat. The great thing is they love the fat. So Luna's favorite meal is a rack of lamb.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So you put a bit of meat in front of them, that's what they eat.
Yeah. And then your wife's doing the same sort of dietary.
She's gone carnivore like me. She was keto post pregnancy. She's like, I need my fixins and stuff.
Yeah.
And now she's got hearing aids, so she's trying to like heal herself at that. But she's gone strict.
Oh, good. Yeah, and she doing.
My mum is also carnivore, and she's way more strict than me. She's very.
Oh yeah, nice.
She was vegetarian for most of her life.
Ooh, yeah.
So she eats more liver than I do. She's fully embraced it, and she says she's the healthiest she's ever been.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. And did she come around to that through your discoveries in nutrition?
Yeah. Over the last 9 years, she changed her mind completely. She did her own research, and she said, "Yeah, this makes sense."
Yeah. No, it does.
Sunlight, grounding, meats. That's all you really need.
Yeah. Yeah, great. So I was going to ask you, you have the blue blocker glasses on, you're doing some grounding earlier. What other peripheral sort of things do you do to optimize your health?
Quite a few, I think. Try and get up at the sunrise and get the sunlight, sunrise, sunset. I go for walks every day, do some strength training. Buteyko, yeah, just generally kind of trying to focus on nasal breathing, abdomen breathing, reducing my hyperventilation, because obviously the uptake of nitric oxide to the brain can be healing. So my mum does a lot of research. So anything she hears that's going to be beneficial to me, she goes, "Hey, do this."
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, cold water treatment. I'm going to start doing cold buckets, or mornings. Just try and because cold shock therapy can actually be really good for the brain. So reset the immune system.
Yeah, and they had those the ice bucket challenges for like ALS or something for a while. Start doing that just for like cold therapy.
Yeah.
And well, that's great. It's always good to see that, and when you make these big changes in your life and you have a lot of very positive health outcomes, it's very natural for people around you to notice that and to pay attention and to sort of pick it up.
It's another thing as well, like emotionally, because my family had a big rift because of something that happened in the past, and everyone was holding on to it. Because of me potentially dying, they started to connect again. So my mother and my grandmother, they reconnected. And that's kind of been healed because of, almost losing someone very precious to all of them. I'm glad I can be that kind of focal point where people go, death is actually a thing that can occur at any point. So why hold on to our pain and suffering and our anger and our hatred? I've had to forgive a lot of things that I did in the past because I was quite a miscreant when I was younger. And I decided that none of that was actually me. I was actually at my core, I was a very nice person. I was acting out because I needed attention. And I blamed everybody else for my problems, my choices. It was all me choosing to do things. It was no one else forcing me. That's the same thing. It's a choice to remain addicted to carbohydrate and to remain addicted to news, social media. All these things, negative impacts. We're always watching the news. I haven't watched the news in like 6 years. Occasionally, I pick up bits of news. It's like, COVID's happening. I was like, when did that happen? Because I wasn't paying attention to what was going on around me. Because why do I want to listen to all the negativity?
Yeah, I don't think I've watched the news in a while. Like I'll read some things and I'll try to because I want to keep apprised of some things, but. When it's 24 hours a day, just the same, just shock headlines that are just trying to just grab your attention, grab your anger and your ire. And I just don't have time for that. It's not reporting anymore. It's sensationalization and editorialization. People just slinging mud and calling names. It's just like, just tell me what happened. And I'll decide if that person is, beyond contempt or not. You don't have to tell me they're beyond contempt. I can figure that one out myself. Thank you. But that's pretty bad. So you're saying that the COVID restrictions are still pretty much enforced there? I heard that.
Well, no, it's within the hospital I'm at. They still suggest wearing masks, getting vaccinated, and all this stuff. Obviously, I'm exempt. I have to say I'm exempt because I'm. It's everything's slower now because the Tory government is trying to sell it off to America.
Okay.
The NHS, they're trying to privatize it. When it's like the single best thing about the United Kingdom. It's like the only thing that it has going. The fact that I don't have to pay out my ass to try and get treatment or MRI scans because I can't afford to do that. They'd have to subsidize my inability to afford it, or I die because of their negligence, basically. So I don't know what's going on. I just know that it takes a long time to get any correspondence.
Right. Yeah.
That's because they're restricting what they can do within their system, their healthcare system.
Right. Okay. Well, hopefully they get you the information that you need. Obviously, you do need it. That's one of the things with with the system here as well in Australia, the public system, is that these sorts of cases where someone has a life-threatening issue, they get handled pretty well.
That's another thing, because I've outlived the terminal diagnosis, even though it's still a terminal cancer. I don't think they prioritize that anymore. They see me as a prolonged patient, you know, someone who's not got terminal cancer.
Oh, Jesus. Okay. Well, it's there were some issues in Ireland as well when I was there, and here we can, if you're sort of in a category 3 and you're not, life and limb sort of threatening emergency, then it can be years. Literally, it's a 4.5 year waiting list to get in to see us in neurosurgery if it's not life threatening.
Wow.
And if it is life threatening, it's like a category 1, which is like, tumor, like we can get them in, a week or two and get surgery, or just have them just come to the hospital. And we have a lot more privileges that way.
Yeah.
When I was in Ireland, it was not the case. It was, didn't matter what it was. Didn't matter how severe it was. Didn't matter how serious it was. It was a minimum 2 years wait to get in to see a specialist. And so your GP could say, look, I think you have a brain tumor. You got cancer. You need to see a brain surgeon. It's like, yeah, gonna be 2 years. And then you come in to see us and it's 2 years, and we say, okay, well,
it's like that is almost paramount to murder. If they die in that time, it's because they didn't see the patient.
Well, that's it. And if it is a tumor, they're not going to last that long. And so they're just going to get worse and get worse and get worse, and they get extremely disabled. And family comes in, brings them into the emergency department, and they're not really able to speak, and they can't move properly. They don't understand, English anymore, and they, can't control their urine and feces. And then you sort of get another scan, and then unless you could, really show that this person was going to cone, they're going to die in the next sort of few weeks. If you didn't come in, you still had to tell them to wait. And so obviously with a high grade sort of stuff, it's a bit different. But like I had one patient. I remember I was in the emergency department there, and this lady came in. It was classic cerebellar, sort of symptoms. And so you're talking about like, oh, she always sort of like falls over, and all the kids are saying, oh, grandma, you're drunk, grandma, you're drunk, but she doesn't drink. And she always, leans off. I was like, does she fall to both sides? She falls to one side. Oh, she always falls to the right. I'm like, oh shit. All right. She's got like a tumor in her cerebellum. And they wouldn't do a scan. They wouldn't let us do a scan either. It had to be a specialist. They wouldn't let the emergency department do any specialized scans like a CT. Certainly not an MRI. That was never going to happen. And so we couldn't get a scan for her. But because they were waiting, and they've been waiting for, I think close to a year at this point, they said, okay, well, they went to like Romania or some other Eastern European country, and they went and got an MRI there, and they brought it back. I'm like, oh, you have it? Like, oh, they do have it. Brought it back. Sure enough, boom, little golf ball right in her right cerebellum, and it was just like shit. But because we had that MRI. Like if she didn't have that, she would have been SOL. Yeah. She's like, no, wait your turn. But because of that, I was able to talk to the neurosurgeon about, okay, well, we're going to figure it out. We should be able to get her in and things like that.
Need to do something. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very difficult. It's very difficult sometimes, even in those situations. So thankfully that, the NHS doesn't seem to be like that. Australia is definitely not like that. Australia can really move quickly in those life-threatening emergencies, which I think is great. But it's the ones that take longer, like the less threatening ones, those are years. It takes years and years and years. And some of the times I tell people, well, it might be in your best interest to maybe see a private surgeon, because some of these things, just getting a laminectomy, a simple decompression of a pinched nerve. It's not all that expensive in as far as neurosurgery is concerned. It's like 15,000 Aussie dollars, and but the pain they're in is debilitating, and they're on disability because they can't work because they're in so much pain. And some of these people are on disability and not working for 5 or 6 years before they get surgery. And that whole time they're not working, they're not making anything. They're just sort of eking an existence on the dole and disability. Whereas if they were able to just pay the 15 grand up front, it would have been back to work 2 months later, and Jesus would have made. Sorry,
just a lot of suffering for nothing. Yeah,
and it's I think, I think it's weird from the system point of view as well, because the government's losing tax revenue on that. These people are not working now, and they're also having to pay disability, and that's because the government doesn't want to pay 15 grand either. And so they're losing money. It's a lose-lose situation. Everyone.
They're too focused on their agendas, so they can't see that there's a bigger picture for everybody. But
it's very strange. But well, I'm glad you were able to take control of your own health and not have to rely on that. And
I mean, when I went in and I declined gadolinium for my MRI, they were like, okay, yeah. They didn't really understand. I was like, well, I don't want to retaining in my brain.
Right.
I had it for 5 years, and then I stopped doing it because Andrew Scarborough shared something about gadolinium being a toxic metal, and I was like, why would I want that in my brain? Get that out of me. And obviously, every time I had it, I felt a bit funky. I was like, this isn't normal.
No. Yeah, and it does build up. I mean, that's something we take into consideration as well when we're following up these long-term patients. We do try to minimize the amount of exposure that people have to that. But yeah, some places are just like, GAD scan every 3 months, and it's just like it adds up.
Too much risk.
It's very hard for your body to clear it. It does build up. So yeah. Well, and you're doing well. So that was, the last 4 years.
I mean, physically I'm functional. Mentally, I'm all there. I struggle finding words because obviously my parietal lobe is where I've had 2 operations. So it's just it's a case of doing the right things, repairing my brain if I can. Obviously, a second operation can the membrane can be damaged and heal less fast or not at all. So I've got to try and repair that if I can by being intelligent and using my just when new things come up, new research, I'm going to start using it. That's why I'm staying alive, so they can cure me.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and then, well, I hope they do. Pablo, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. How do people get a hold of you? What's your website and blog? And
it's just pablosbrainjourney.com. Can I share the links with you? And then
yeah, I can put everything in the descriptions. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think you're on Twitter as well. That's how I got a hold of you.
I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. Pablo's Journey for Brain Cancer. Got my websites. Quite a few things, to be honest.
Yeah.
I've got Patreon, which is something that people donate. It's a little bit of money at the beginning of every month that I can use to survive, because at the minute I'm kind of on my Facebook blog and my personal page. I'm kind of every couple of weeks I'm posting my PayPal ME to try and get people to donate as little or as much as possible so I can buy electricity. We're just on the edge of survival. We prioritize food, so when it comes to paying for bills, we have less money because we bought all the food we need. Just like it's going round and round circles. Hopefully when I write my book and I do all the things I need to do, I can make enough money to survive without benefits and go from there. Writing a book is a painstaking process because I struggle to find words, so it's a bit frustrating sitting there for hours trying to write a book. It's my Patreon.
Just your journey or something else?
I just can't seem to find the link. Sorry. There it is. There's my Patreon and my website. Obviously, my blog, people can just type in Pablo Isaiah Kelly and find me on there.
Great. Awesome. Well, thanks, man. We'll put all those links in the description if people are able to help and willing and able to. Hopefully they do, and hopefully you can get done with your book and just continue on and continue enjoying your time with your wife and kids.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, and maybe we'll talk again in the future.
Absolutely,
when
I'd
I
love
have
to.
another success story.
Okay. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Great. Cool. All right. We'll see you next time.
Hey guys, thank you very much for taking the time out to listen to what I had to say. If you like it, then please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel and podcast. And if you're on YouTube, then please hit that little bell and subscribe, and that'll let you know anytime I have a new video out, which should be every week, if not more. And if you could share this with your friends, that would help me get the word out and let me know that you like what I'm doing. Thanks again, guys.